Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Streets and Transportation Committee meeting of the City of Rehoboth Beach. Today's date is Thursday, July 21st, 2022, and I call this meeting to order at 2:01 p.m. Thank you. We've got lots of members from the public here today. We appreciate and welcome you. Like I stated before the meeting started, if and when we ask for any public input, just come up to one of the microphones. Please identify yourselves and then make sure you're close enough that the mic is picking up. We do have a lot of people that live watch and also like to go back and listen to the meetings. With that, I'm going to do a roll call vote of the committee. David Diefendorf.
Here.
Ms. Donna Mayberry.
Here.
John Geiger is absent. And David Mann?
I'm right here.
Elise Moore?
Here.
And the chair is here. We have a quorum and can conduct business today. First is an approval of minutes of a meeting dated June 16, 2022. Those minutes were sent out to everyone ahead of time. So any questions, comments, concerns? With that, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes held June 16, 2022. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? With that, the meeting minutes are approved unanimously. No correspondence has been identified. And starting off with an update from the chair going into old business, I'm just going to update the committee and the public on two projects. We recommended that the mayor and commissioners adopt no left turns year-round on Rehoboth Avenue. The commissioners were not inclined to do that, lacking evidence that it is needed and also wanting a more comprehensive plan, traffic plan for Rehoboth Avenue are two of the things cited. The latter part of that I will go into later during the meeting. The committee also recommended to the Board of Commissioners implementing the sidewalk curb project at Columbia Avenue and Grove Street. The mayor and commissioners seem inclined to move forward with that. There has been discussion with DelDOT on some of the things that were originally proposed, whether they're required or not, such as a landing, sidewalk. The mayor and commissioners and DelDOT has said those things are not required. They initially thought that it would be helpful, but it's not required. So essentially, we had a sidewalk going nowhere. So we may be able to take that out, and there would be less costs associated with it. The mayor and commissioners also expressed an interest in keeping some of the green space, and there may be a plan where we can achieve that by not having that sidewalk and just having more of a curbing and also maintaining those two parking spots and the trees surrounded there. So the city manager and public works director is continuing to investigate options there, and we'll come back to the mayor and commissioners for an approval to move forward. Just want to give you an update on that. Any questions related to those two projects?
I'm glad to hear that on the last one. I think that's a good compromise. Because I was concerned, too, about losing two parking spaces, the tree.
Yeah, and I think we were under the impression that DelDOT may have required that sidewalk, and it turns out they don't. So I think we're moving in a good direction. If there's no other questions, we'll go into the third old business item, which is discussion related to traffic speed and safety concerns on the thorough streets off State Road into the city of Rehoboth Beach through Country Club Estates, mostly namely Munson Street, and the letter and recommendations that this committee received from Chris Galante. We've over the years probably have gotten a lot of complaints about speed on Munson Street, specifically through Chris speaking to the chief and expressing concern with the mayor and commissioners. We put some speed tests out there and did some other investigating on potential issues there. And Chris, this being his profession and expertise, was nice enough to give us recommendations. And what I'd like to do today is for us to go through those recommendations and decide if we want to propose anything to the mayor and commissioners. So I'm going to ask Chris just to give a very brief overview on his experience on the street and observations. And then, Chief, I'll let you weigh in if you've got anything additional after that, and then I'll open it up for us to discuss the recommendations.
All right. Hi, everybody. Chris Galante. Thanks for having me back and providing the opportunity to dialogue about the ongoing vehicular traffic, speeding, reckless driving, and corresponding pedestrian safety issues on the 300 block of Munson. This issue is not going away and is only getting worse. We need relief, and everyone who lives on the block and with whom I have spoken with agree. Since we last met, you've received my testimony. Since we last met, you have received my testimony and letters, at last count, 8, from homeowners of the block that detail the problem. The problem is the volume and the speed. The traffic monitor installed in May recorded 10,201 car and trucks going down our block in a 4-day period. Some of the cars were clocked at 44 miles per hour, nearly twice the posted limit. Since I was last here, we've had 3 documented incidents of westbound cars going the speed limit that were passed on the left. So let's think about that. A car driving towards the rotary, going the speed limit that was passed on the left. 3 incidents. These passing cars engaged in serious, reckless, and dangerous driving on a residential street. We also had a pretty serious accident on July 3rd on the corner of Munson and State. I'm sure the chief is aware of that. And on July 5th, traffic was backed up continuously on Munson for 7 hours, bumper to bumper, 7 hours, from 11 a.m. till after 6 p.m. I'm going to hit my recommendations at a high level. You have them in the letter that I submitted on June 16th. Let's see. Yep, sure. Yep. I will say that we have a higher volume of traffic on Munson than the 300 block of Hickman. Hickman has 2 speed limit signs and digital readers. We want them on Munson. We also want lines painted down the middle of the street to control and shepherd traffic and eliminate cars passing one another. Lines painted in front of our driveway will also increase visual stimulation and slow traffic. These improvements, along with concentrated enforcement, will give us relief. The long-term recommendations, those were my short-term recommendations, as well as increased enforcement. The long-term recommendations, as I previously mentioned, Munson is 37 feet wide in comparison to every other street in Country Club Estate at 32 feet. And I recommend that the city study the potential of a road diet to make the street more narrow throughout the 300 block, potentially installing a dedicated bike lane with the goal of slowing traffic, increasing safety, and creating spaces for street trees. This sort of ties to what I was saying before. I understand the current infrastructure plan has for a dedicated crosswalk and flashing lights to facilitate pedestrian crossing at State and Munson. While I appreciate this improvement, what we really need is a 4-way stop at that intersection, not just a 4-way stop at State and Munson, but also a State at Hickman. Lastly, I recognize that this is controversial, but it was also documented in letters from a handful of our neighbors that the city explore the installation of rubber speed bumps, speed blocks, or speed humps There are speed bumps elsewhere in the city, including on Lake Drive between King Charles and Bayard. And there are also rubber speed blocks on Columbia. Such improvements will make all the difference to safeguard us, the residents of the 300 block of Munson.
Chris, thank you very much. Are
Yep.
there any specific, do you have anything else you want to follow up with that?
You know, I mean, I think you can see it here. We've got a number of folks from the block. We're galvanizing. There are 17 houses on the south side of Munson and 13 houses on the north side. And I think between the letters that you've received and the people that are here, there's probably about 60 to 70% of the block that's represented. I've spoken to almost everyone. We have a couple of houses that are investment properties, and I haven't spoken to the owners, but all of the permanent residents, all of the people who are living in their homes are, you know, really concerned about this. So,
Is that a country club estates, the numbers? Yes. Because Munson goes on.
Walter,
Excuse me, what's the answer to the question?
I'm focused on the 300 block of Munson. If people want to talk about the 200 block of Munson, that's up to them to talk about. I don't perceive that as being as big of an issue, frankly. It's a much more narrow street, and once you get off of, or you go through our block, there's lots of ways that traffic can go. Onto Country Club, onto Scarborough. So
Yeah,
I don't
just
perceive
for
the
the
issues as big.
just for the record, we're specifically talking about the streets and country club estates as it's identified on the agenda.
That's it.
That's it, thank you. Does anyone have any specific questions for Chris? I think what I'd like to do is take each one of these one by one, discuss it, so we get a sense of how we feel about each thing, and then open it up to the rest of the public to weigh in. Does that sound like a plan with everyone?
Sounds good.
I may move up there, Chris, so I can just scroll through.
Yep.
If you want to, I think we may have questions that come up
Yep.
as we're discussing. If you want to take a seat up here, that would be fine.
Where?
These mics are,
Yep.
these mics are live.
Okay, sounds good.
So the first short-term recommendation that is before us is that there are no speed limit signs on Munson between Country Club Drive and Country Club Drive. It is recommended that there be installation of 2 posted 25-mile-per-hour signs, 1 for eastbound and 1 for westbound, at the beginning of the block shortly after the intersections of Country Club. To me, that seems like a reasonable request if there are no street traffic signs or speed limit signs.
So we're talking about 2 solar-powered speed signs?
No.
No?
No,
What?
these are just the
speed limit
normal
sign. Oh.
25-mile-an-hour signs.
Okay,
One
speed limits.
at the beginning of the block going
Okay.
eastbound and one at the beginning of the block going westbound.
I'm in favor of that. I would also think that this would be a perfect place for those solar-powered speed signs, just like they have on Hickman, have on Columbia, that I've been preaching for throughout the city. I would be in favor of those.
Okay.
My recommendation 3, but thank you.
No, I jumped ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, if you could just wait until we call for public comment, thank you.
Yeah. I concur with Dave that as far as having the solar-powered speed reader signs that give people feedback, and I think that does the same thing as also posting the speed limit, right? So in a way, maybe we wouldn't have to duplicate actual speed limit signs, which adds clutter to the road, you know? So, because I think, couldn't both functions occur with the solar-powered speed sign?
They just have to be positioned correctly. So as the chief had said, you know, as you're coming down, you can't have one right at the stop sign. You've got to have it as somebody goes down the hill or comes up the hill, giving people enough time to speed up to actually do anything. So that would be your only downfall. You'd have to find the right spot for that.
Well, it sounds like we're in favor of one, maybe including it with the solar powered signs, but I think that is recommended later under long-term. So we'll go back to that one when we get to it. Chief, do you want to weigh in at all on that one?
As far as the two signs, yeah, I would recommend that. I don't see a problem. I would refer that to our sign shop guy to, he's, you know, to correct dimensions and how far back from intersections.
Okay, great, thank you, Chief. Second short-term recommendation is that the width of Munson,
The third full sentence, I recommend the city paint a double line.
well, I'll repeat it. Munson is 37 feet wide. All of the other blocks in Country Club Estates is 32 feet wide. That the 5-foot difference is a problem managing speed, and the recommendation is that the city paint a double yellow line down the middle of the block to help manage the flow of traffic so cars don't pass one another. I think we just got some real-life examples about how that has just happened recently several times. So I think during the last meeting, I asked the Public Works Director what the cost and staff time that it would take to do this. And I think the response was, it's pretty minimal. That's correct, okay. Go ahead, Donna.
On painting signs, don't we have to follow the uniform street sign things? I mean, there are international regulations about lines and things like that. Would that apply to yellow lines and how that would apply to that section, that type of street?
There's an entire book of code that deals with the stripes, if you want to drill down that far.
Yeah, uniform traffic code.
Yes, but I think they know what they're doing. It's just a question of whether to put them in or not.
I just think we should be consistent or try to follow that, stay within that.
I am sure that if we were to choose to put these in, that it would follow the code. Any thoughts on?
It can't hurt. It can't be a bad thing. Passing on a city street, a two-lane city street, is pretty bizarre, but I don't know how often Chief Banks has had to deal with that, but I've never witnessed it. I've seen a lot of impatient people doing a lot of crazy things, but never passing on a two-lane street before.
I've never personally saw it here in well, I guess I have. It's going out of Rehoboth Avenue at times.
Yeah, that's a whole
But
aggressive deal.
obviously, I'm not on that street, and if they're witnessing that, I don't think it's a bad idea if we can accommodate.
Because for every time they saw it, there are times they didn't see it.
Correct.
Well, I personally am in favor of moving this one forward.
I am too.
I think everyone else was here except you, David. I asked the question. It goes to, let me say that after I read number 3. Throughout the city, there exist painted yellow lines that create a square in front of resident driveways to ensure that the spot is available for the homeowner who needs a spot. The painted lines are throughout the city, including the 300 block of Stokely, help add to the visual impact in which turns, controls, and slows speed. I recommend that these lines be painted in front of each home. I asked the question, why is it so inconsistent that the double yellow lines and the the boxes in front of driveways, it's inconsistent throughout the city on where they exist and where they don't. And no one knows the answer, just,
So it's not in city code.
it is not, it is not.
So then it comes up with situations like this, where it's brought to our attention, and then we agree to pass it upstream to the Board of Commissioners and the mayor. Which so far, it seems like we're on the right pathway. Now, I assume we're doing these boxes as part of traffic calming. Is that the objective?
Correct.
I'm in favor of this as well.
I would be in favor of that. And my question is, do we need to do the boxes and the double yellow lines? Normally, you don't have a double yellow line on a street in the city like that. So it's just something, would one of them work, and do we need to do both? It's just a thought.
As soon as we go through our very brief discussion, we'll open it up and everyone can weigh in on everything. I just wanted you to get an opportunity to hear our initial thoughts on each thing so you can give a broader scope of your individual thoughts. Any other thoughts?
I think painting out the yellow lines to protect people's driveways makes a lot of sense. Happens throughout town, and let's just do it there at Munson. If that helps slow things down, all the better.
So does then it become a burden upon the homeowner to fund this, like sidewalk repairs? Or the city will put the stripes around the driveway aprons?
It would be my expectation that this is a city project paid by the city. So I understand your thoughts, David, but the fact that it's significantly wider than all of the other streets gives me the thought that it may be required, especially hearing since people are passing moving cars. That's pretty concerning. So I could be persuaded, but right now I'm inclined to do both.
It can't hurt. It's just paint. It's not like we're repaving the whole place. So it's, yeah.
Okay, and number 4 on short-term recommendations is install dedicated permanent speed readers similar to the ones that exist on Columbia and the 300 block of Hickman. There is a temporary mobile. There was, never mind.
What
So
happened to that?
we move it around the city so we can, I'll let the
On
chief answer.
Scarborough now?
It's actually a message board, so if we're doing sewer work, water works, we take it out and put a message on it, but it
Do
can
all
also
of
do
that with
speed.
those
So it's actually hooked up to the trailer right now for us to take it back down there today. So hopefully it's there before the end of the day.
How many of those does the city own?
I just have one of those. I have 4 message boards, but only one is equipped with
The speed.
gauge speed.
Handy.
So we've got the speed readers on Columbia and Hickman that have been in place. Keith, can you remember how long they've been operational? The one at Hickman, to me, is fairly recent. I can't remember Columbia.
Time moves on. It's probably been closer to 8 years. It's Columbia at least, and Hickman, like you said, maybe it was
So,
6 years, but it's been
Has
a
it had,
while.
has it had the desired effect?
I think it depends on who you talk with. The one on Hickman, I don't really like the placement as the curve, so it doesn't always pick up. That was moved there because the position of the homeowners complained they didn't want it in front of their residence. So it became very controversial back and forth. That also happened on Columbia Avenue. That thing was actually moved 3 different times to try, and they're not in exact locations I would want them because of the sun, because it gets a lot of shade in one of the areas on Columbia Avenue, and the speed, with the speed bump and all that out there, it should have been probably in different locations, but homeowners weren't happy where it was, so we moved them.
And then on
With that being
Hickman,
said, they do work, it gets people's attention, but it's critical on the placement of them.
then on Hickman, there was a stop sign that was placed also.
Correct,
At
again, from the
Laurel.
recommendations of the homeowners.
And how did How's that worked out?
The one that was really pushing it, residents, he's moved on out of the town, so he was happy when it was there. I got a couple other homeowners on that street that do not like the place of the stop sign that was added, and I think it took a parking spot away and things like that. So some were not happy, some were. But has it slowed down? I think it's had a desired effect and had for another stop sign, yes.
So it sounds like if the speed readers go in, the 20 houses that are active in this process would want to have some input as to where the speed readers are placed so that no one gets upset about having it in front of their house?
You know, it does have some lights, lights on it, so that comes on and off. Again, it's not to offend anyone, but I don't know how much, you start asking too many questions as far as placement, and then you get too many inputs, and where do you put it?
Right.
It should be designed the best place that it needs to be, in my opinion. Now, you try to be fair, be smart about it, and use common sense, but you try to get as close as possible to the desired areas that we need to have.
Well, in this case, we have a lot of property owners asking for this, so hopefully they would be amenable and
Correct,
help out.
correct, that's what it sounds like.
Maybe they'll
I'm just saying,
volunteer.
the question was from Mr. Mann was just how's it had the desired effect or any feedback, so I'm just giving it all.
It's a great idea until it goes in front of your house.
Well, if you're asking for help, maybe some people will
Right.
step forward. But no, I travel Hickman a lot, and I think, I live on Hickman, and I travel Hickman a lot, and putting in that speed reader has really slowed things down. And I think they're better than a caution light or anything, because you're giving people feedback about how fast they're going, and they know it, you know? So I think that's what really causes people to check their speed. So I think they're very effective. So I think they'll work really nicely there.
Okay. With that, I'm just going to quickly go through the long-term recommendations and then let the members of the public weigh in. Long-term recommendation number one is that the city study a potential a road diet to make the street more narrow throughout the 300 block, or potentially install a dedicated bike lane with the goal of slowing traffic, increasing safety, and creating space for tree streets. I personally wouldn't want to move to this recommendation until we've tried others out to see if they work or not, but that's my personal opinion.
I agree with that one.
Agree.
Yes.
Okay. Long-term recommendation number two.
Four-way stop signs.
Four-way stop sign at State and Munson, as well as State and Hickman to slow traffic. I'm going to ask the Public Works Director. There was a plan to put 2 stop signs somewhere, right? Or was that just a crosswalk? On State? I'm sorry.
The current plan is just to do the crosswalk. There were no additional stop signs going in on State and Munson.
Are there 2 crosswalks, Kevin, one on either side, north and south, or are they just going to be one crosswalk?
One intersection, I believe there were, I don't recall off the top of my head whether there was, it was a complete 4 crosswalk intersection or just the 2. I can run upstairs and find out before the end of the meeting.
My recollection was it was just 2.
Four-way stops equals gridlock. Poor traffic flow, waste of gasoline, in my opinion. Bike lanes is premature. I think we got to wait. Everything else makes sense, but I think 4-way stops would be pretty radical. State Road has good traffic flow, and generally, it's pretty well enforced along there. There's a good police presence, And I don't really see as much speeding on there as you would expect.
So this recommendation is to install a stop sign on State Road, right? Because there's already a stop sign, right? Okay. So I would tend to agree with David. The police are always on State Road running radar, so I don't think there's the problem on State Road as much as there is on Munson. Just my feeling.
I think people have been slipping under the radar on Munson, and maybe we have a revenue stream there that.
Yeah.
But as we know, it takes 2 officers to run radar and really stop people. So there is a staffing issue that crops up.
I have a question. If we install the 2 solar-powered speed readers, do they also keep track of the number of cars going by, their speeds, like you were able to get all that data on Munson before? And and I take it you collected that data from the temporary speed reader sign that went in?
No, we have another program that we put out there that's wireless that we can put on any street. It's quickly removable. To answer your question about the solar signs, you can, it's whatever you pay for. You can get just a basic, or you can add all kinds of things in there that keeps data. So we could, if you bought the deluxe model, you could get all that information.
I think we'd want to monitor it. I think we'd want to collect data again and monitor it, and after it goes in and see how it's going. And
Chief,
yeah.
do we have that capability on the other speed reader signs we have throughout the city?
No. I mean, it keeps some speed data, but it won't get the volume of traffic and all that stuff.
Okay.
Could you probably do some upgrades to the systems? Yes. They've been there for a while. Again, with modern technology, you can pretty much add anything into it.
Right.
But you're saying you have other equipment that will
Correct. Just
count
like
the number of cars and the speed.
correct, and which
you-
directional and all that.
And the
Yes.
city has it, and how difficult is that to install periodically?
It's not. We move it around weekly.
You would move it around weekly?
It's really about the battery life. It's usually lasts only about 4 days. Otherwise, we keep it out there every day somewhere.
Oh, okay, but
So usually we'll put out Friday because that's usually the issues on weekends. So, and it'll run to early Tuesday morning because we want to always try to be consistent the days and times we do it. So if we put it out on a Friday morning and run it to Tuesday morning, that usually gets a holiday weekend.
okay. Well, you know, we could just monitor the situation and see if the steps that are happening are
And we
helping.
would.
And lastly, it's to explore the installation of rubber speed blocks, speed humps, or speed bumps. I know Public Works sometimes does not like them for, in the wintertime, plowing and other challenges. Chief, I don't know if you have any input on how effective they are. We do have someone throughout, in other spots throughout the city.
I would say the one that's most noticeable and I got the most feedback on was Columbia Avenue, and the residents that wanted the speed bump in there are very pleased with what it did for that. It's a different type of speed bump, it helps with trucks with trailers not making as much noise go over, so it's not as raised, so it does help with Public Works going over. But you do have to put additional flags out, so Public Works or others see it coming because it could get covered over with leaves. That's more on Columbia Avenue. I don't think in Munson Street you get all the leaf coverage. But yes, it's been effective. The ones we've had, people seem to think it's done the job.
Any comments from the committee on that recommendation?
My experience has been that people that want the speed bumps get them, they move out of the area, and then they quickly, when the road gets paved over, they get eliminated. That's what I've lived through.
I will say when we put the one on Columbia Avenue, it's a state-maintained road. We had to get the state involved, and they're willing to let it happen, but they were not big fans of it because of what Mr. Mann just stated. They just have to go back and take them up because people complain about it stopping going, and people at night hear the cars, going faster, slow down, going faster, and back and forth. But I can only speak, bless you, I can only speak on the Columbia Avenue where the Pacific homeowners wanted it, that gave positive feedback at the time.
Thank you, Chief. Well, then
Those speed bumps, they do slow traffic down. I would kind of be in favor of doing the short-term recommendations first to see what happens. It doesn't mean we can install speed bumps at a later time. If the chief's going to be out there monitoring some of this, we still see excessive speeding. And I know Kevin loves the speed bumps, so he would probably want to put those down. But we just keep track of it, and then there's no reason we can't add them later. That's just my thoughts.
For me personally, I think the speed signs are the most effective. Going down Columbia Avenue, don't really think about the speed humps. I'm like, oh, my car's got a good suspension system. You know, you just don't. I don't think about it as much. It's the sign that goes, oh, am I actually going that fast? And it makes you think about it and pause. So I think they're much more effective than anything else. Besides the other recommendations, which are, you know, fairly simple fixes. So if there's no further general comments from the committee, I'm going to open it up to the public. Just to, if you will, just come up to the microphone, state your name, and your relationship to the city. You can give your address or simply say you're a resident on the street. That's fine.
Hello, my name's Ray Ayub. I live on Munson. I think State Street, I don't want to go past that, the way you kind of went quickly over it. That's a very dangerous intersection. As Chris mentioned, there were two accidents within a week, I think, of each other. I've been living here a long time, 1970, and still coming off of the circle on Munson, trying to get across State Street, I have to inch my way out every time. Number one, there's bushes right here. But in addition to the bushes that are on this one house, the property, I can't see all the way down. Then you've got the cars lined up and parked on both ways. I don't know if the stop sign won't be the answer on State Street because these cars are flying down State Street. I know you don't want to put a light up there. I don't want a light either. But something's got to be done to slow these people down. I don't know if the block prior to Munson Street, a stop sign there to catch them as they're coming off of one, slow them down there, and then before they can pick up massive speed, they see another stop sign at State and Munson. I think that's a very dangerous intersection. I think it's even more important than Munson, and I live on Munson, like I mentioned. As far as Munson is concerned, I think an answer would be, I'm not sure of a double line, Chris. I think maybe a single line and then the squares in the driveway. I'm just a little concerned about a double line taking maybe 2 feet. I'm not sure, this gentleman back there might know, but 37 feet, cars parked on each side at 7, 8 feet. They don't park right on the curb, a foot and a half away. That's 15, 16 feet of cars, another 2 feet, and a double line. I think we're going to be awfully close. And I guess that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Please come on up. Don't be shy.
I'm Terry Ayub, and we also have been it's my husband. So we've been property owners here since the 70s. I also have a grave concern about Munson and State Street, because if you're going to put a crosswalk there, I mean, I'm afraid to drive across. Because of what my husband said, you can't see the cars coming east or west, or is it north and south? East and west, because of the cars that are parked there. And you say there's always a police presence. Honestly, I've never seen a police there with radar. And if they're there, who's stopping them? Because where's the other car? I've never seen two vehicles there unless it's unmarked, and I just haven't noticed it. But, you know, personally, my heart starts to race a little bit when I have to cross State Street. And after many years of being here, I've never seen it this bad. Chris, I want to thank you for all your recommendations and your hard work. They're really good ones. But I think that if we followed Hickman and put the orange or whatever color, bright yellow, blocks in front of the driveway and the parking space area, I think that's going to be a huge deterrent for speeders. I'm not nixing the double line idea, but I'm wondering if we could try the speed posted signs, then the speed limit flashing, then the, I'm going to call them squares, and then revisit the double line later. That's my recommendation. So the double line, we revisit, but we do the squares first. And we, of course, you mentioned, Donna, that the speed limit flashing would be sufficient. Well, they don't know what the speed limit is if we don't post a speed limit sign. So we have to have the sign and the alert thing. The other thing is, I know what you said, Mr. Mann, about the gas, and you said it was, I don't know the word you used. You said it was
Gallons
a
of wasted fuel
radical-
at stop
You
signs.
said it was radical to put a four-way stop sign there, and I understand the emissions. You stop, you restart your car, and I hear you, but what good is a walkway gonna do when you can't even drive across and walk across? People see you, and they don't always stop for you, whether you're walking or not. So what, I didn't know that there was anything about a crosswalk involved. Could somebody explain what the plan for that is? Are there going to be blinking lights there? Is there going to be a post that you press and you can cross?
Kevin was going to get the plans, and then he can speak to that.
Okay, and then I'll just finish real quick after I hear that, but, oh, the speed bumps on Columbia. Columbia is a much narrower road than Munson Street. You know, they've got 2 speed bumps to take up the width of the street. I don't know how that would work on Munson, but I agree with, I believe you said that we would defer to the speed bumps as a long-range plan. So that's my input. Thank you, Chris, for all your work.
Glad you're here.
Let me say one more thing, excuse me. Chief, I don't want you to get mad. I have talked to one of your policemen who was parked. I don't want my wife to get me.
They're going to be outside your house now.
Come up to the mic.
Actually, I went up to the car that was parked on State Street, and I thanked him for being there. And I said, but would you also come around to Munson occasionally and sit there and catch our speeders?
Well, what would I be mad about?
I don't know.
Everybody were friendly.
Good afternoon. My name's Frank Lacey. I live at 301 Munson. I'm also on the board of directors of the Homeowners Association and head of the traffic committee that has been appointed to try to look at the traffic totally within Country Club Estates and within specifically Hickman and Munson, partly because those are the 2 big pass-throughs. I would point out, if you're familiar with Munson, Munson is a straight shot, non-stop from country club to country club. There was no breaks like there was on Hickman. So I think that I actually witnessed, I was talking to Chris in front of my house when a car went by, and all of a sudden we heard this guy shift gears, mufflers roaring, and this guy went by, the guy that was probably going, I'm going to guess, 25, maybe 28, maybe 23. He was going reasonable speed limit if the speed limit's 25. And this guy just shot by him, and I don't know if he was picked up on the reader at that point because he was on the other side of the street, but I have to guess that he probably hit 60 at some point going through there. With respect to the flashers, I do know we'd have to figure out exactly where to put them, but if you go across the Bay Bridge, if you drive places, you'll see things flashing, and they're not there to do anything but remind you, because as you're driving, you may not realize that you're picking up some speed and picking up some speed. Uh, My house being the first one coming from off of Scarborough into Munson, and the first one before the stop sign, I don't have as many speeders per se in front of my house because they can't pick up speed yet. But if you look at them 2 or 3 houses down, that's when they're starting to pick it up. So we fully support Chris. Chris is on the traffic committee. I wasn't sure he was, but he definitely is for the homeowners association. I know the chief has been many times, and he says he'll work with us. We're trying to figure out what we can do, and I think these are good starting points. I know that there's always, except during the summer, we always have at least 1, maybe 2 of these dumpsters in front of our streets as people are doing reconstruction. So they're pushing things out, and so they're always there too, taking up more room. But I think that I think that the readers make good sense, because I think if you see them flashing, you will probably slow down. Just human nature. I'm not sure, other than putting police out there all the time, and we can't afford that, to slow it down. And as far as stop, I'm not sure, I've never realized there's never been a speed limit sign on Munson, and I've lived there since the late 80s. So, I mean, I guess it wouldn't hurt putting one there somewhere. And although I don't have a big thing to say, I do know that on State Road, before they built the townhouses over on the other side, they used to have a big bush. The police used to sit in that big bush, and they'd stop speeders right and left coming down State. They don't have a big bush there, but they have townhouses, and I think the traffic may not be going as fast on State. But I don't pay that much time. I do cross it a lot walking a dog. It is difficult sometimes to walk across, as well as, and I know I've talked to the chief about crosswalks. People are supposed to cross. When people step into a crosswalk, they're supposed to stop. I mean, whether they stop or not, unless the police are there, there's not much that can be done about it. But I think that's something that can be looked at. But basically, we're here to really support the short term to see if we can make some hay and slow things down with the short term. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, I
Yeah, I
think
was
you
just
wanted
going to answer the one question about whether there was going to be the flashing light, the rapid rectangular flashing beacon at the proposed crosswalk at Munson and State, and there is, so there'll be an ability to.
Is it 2 crosswalks or 4?
The last drawing I have shows 4, so it'd be 2 on, 1 on Munson, 1 on Grove, I guess, and then 2 on State. But as I'm thinking through that with the RRFB, I don't think we would set 2 up. So it may just be the 1 on probably the outer side,
Okay.
outside of town one. But I'll confirm all that. Yeah.
If you could, I'm sorry, if you could come up
Correct.
to
The crosswalk that's in the program for this year to go to be constructed this fall is at the Grove State intersection. And we did the traffic count 2 years ago when we first started working on this project. We measured it at Hickman and Canal, and we measured it at Grove and Munson. And Grove and Munson was by far the busier of the 2. So we opted to put a crosswalk there as our first priority. Mm-hmm. Sure, absolutely.
Hey, Kevin, can I ask you a question? I'm sorry, just for everybody's,
As long as you don't say I love speed bumps.
and paint too. I know the Army likes to paint things. So just for the people about the state road, so that is a state road, correct?
Correct. That's correct.
So they would have to approve any stop sign on that road, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
any other comments from the public? Go ahead, ma'am, and then we'll go to Mr. Burningham last.
All right, my parents built the house back in the early.
If you could just come a little closer.
Sorry. My name is Susan Hurd. I'm actually representing my 97-year-old mother. I used used to be able to see Silver Lake, and of course, that was a long time ago, back in the early 70s. Anyway, but Munson has become a thoroughfare, and you're not talking anything about changing any of the traffic patterns. You're not talking about changing anything of the traffic, and there's a speeding problem and there's a traffic problem. And the traffic problem is immense. When it's backing up and I can't get in or out of the driveway, there's a huge issue. And I think one way, and I'm probably way out there, is to make Grove Street a one-way street in so that Munson doesn't become a thoroughfare to getting off. People are offshooting, they're using their apps to find quicker ways to exit rather than going up Rehoboth Avenue. I don't know if anybody drives really down Rehoboth Avenue. You get stopped at the traffic lights and you sit there, and I'm talking even in the winter, you'll sit there. I'll sit at First Street and then I'll go to the Second Street. I don't drive on Rehoboth Avenue. That's why nobody else is either, because of those traffic lights. They sit there and they sit there for 30 seconds. They're very long. There'll be no traffic going the other ways. And I know that this is a big issue, the left turn, and I'm talking off the mark, not talking about Munson Street, but I think that has helped add to the issues because people are avoiding the first and second blocks, or they're coming across from on Second Street to Bayard or First to King Charles, and then coming down the side streets and then picking up Munson to take the loop. Well, if you make Grove Street one way coming in and make it so you can't exit out, so you either have to, from Munson, go on to State Road, take a right or a left, you'll kill a lot of the traffic issues, the high density. That's a personal opinion. I mean, it's crazy. My parents would never have bought on that street if they knew the amount of traffic that is on there now. I can tell you that they would have bought any of the other streets. But that aside, I think if you want to put one of those flashing lights in front of my mom's house, it'd be perfect. Sir, I've noticed that you have had officers there lately pulling people over. You park in front of my Trailblazer, you will catch so many people in the morning. I'm telling you, I wake up at 4:30, 5 o'clock. He knows because he'll be out there walking his dog. And there was a car, Range Rover, went probably 60 miles per hour down there. Put one of those up. I would say put out cameras that actually record and can do, they do it in DC, they do it everywhere, where you get tickets. Do it. Do it on that street. You want to make an income generator, there you go. How fast? Early in the morning and late in the evening. I can tell you there's a green pickup truck, right?
Oh, yeah. Dodge.
Not to get sidetracked, I would just,
But-
so
but-
everybody knows
Everybody knows that guy.
the state law doesn't allow, they do red light cameras, but they don't have anything on the books to allow municipalities or states to do the speed enforcement for the speed, like,
But-
everybody agrees that we couldn't do that.
They come down the hill and
Yeah.
you'll get them. They start coming down the hill.
Thank you.
And that's really all. But the solar power, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
sorry,
No,
but
thank you.
it is. It's very frustrating living on that street.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sherry Bourne. I live at 308 Munson. We've owned the property since 1981, and I've permanently been there for the past 15 years. Two-story yellow house, only one on the block. Anyway, thank you so much for all of this. But just a couple things. All of those 3 short-term recommendations, I think, are fine. And we used to have blocks around the driveways. You know, I've lost track of time, but I think it's been there since I was permanently there. So that's kind of like not a new thing. I'm for the double yellow line because I live only 5 houses from the stop sign going into town. So that would be east. And when I'm going into my driveway, of course, with my blinker on, I have cars zipping around me and passing me to get 5 houses closer to the stop sign. So double yellow line would clearly be helpful, all the blinking things, the speed limit, and definitely the boxes around there. And then assess that, get some data on it, so we have some scientific data on it, and move on then to step 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
I'm Diana Jones.
Just come up a little closer, especially because of the mask. You need to just get a little closer.
I'm Diana Jones. I live at 330. I live across the street from Chris. And my house has got the big white porch on the side. So we're right on the curve. Sitting on my porch, watching the cars, the bicycles, the people on the scooters come by. It's horrifying watching everybody go by. They're all speeding. They're not looking. The people on the bikes are looking at their phones. It's crazy. And just trying to sit there and relax. And I invite anybody to come sit on my porch because it's just watching these people flying down the road. It's really crazy. And just yesterday, I was trying to cross the road at the stop sign. I'm one house from the stop sign on the west side, I guess it would be, from near the circle. And I was crossing to go to my house, and it's curved there. And just as I was crossing, this Mini Cooper just came flying out, and it made me jump. And I was just amazed by how fast he was approaching the stop sign. I think he was going to fly by it if I hadn't been in the intersection. I have two young drivers. I'm afraid when they try to back out of the driveway. We've only lived there since 2018, so we're newbies here. If I had realized the traffic, we might have chosen another street. And we also have a problem with State and Munson and Grove there. Trying to walk as a pedestrian across that street, it's hard. As a driver, you can't see when you try to pull out of Munson and make a left turn. You can't see because of the cars that are parked on the street. It's really dangerous. So we're in favor of the blinking lights. Anything that can slow down people and remind them that they're in a neighborhood, I think would be helpful. I think if people get on like vacation mode and they're just not paying attention. I don't think, a lot of the people they're just not paying attention. But we also have a lot of Uber drivers, delivery drivers, and everybody who's got a lawn service goes up and down our road. And their speeding is a lot of traffic. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Walter?
Good afternoon. My name is Walter Burningham. I live at 123 Rehoboth Avenue in Rehoboth, and I'm here, I guess, to help educate and eat through your comments, and it's nice to see all of you show up. I usually sit back on the corner, but a lot of you may come to the meetings by the tube. Excellent way to find out what's happening, and part of the problem is that your parents and a lot of these people bought here years ago, and now you're in those properties. But Rehoboth is not what it used to be 5 years ago. When you talk, first of all, 300, I gather, is between Country Club and State Road. It is State Road, R-O-A-D. It's not State Street. That's in Dover. Okay. So let's start out. The lady was just speaking. You got cars, you got scooters, you got skateboards, you got bicycles, and the chief has on the road 2 sworn officers out there trying to enforce the law, too. And I begged him in previous years, add more people, get in the budget, but you still only have 2 people. For whatever the complaints are, they have to prioritize. And when you talk about noise or whatever else that was mentioned earlier in environmental, you still have only 2 people. You can't do it. So you need to speak up to the commissioners before budget time, and so many of you will go to Florida, and those budget sessions are held in January and February and March, and then it becomes an emergency because there's a date by which you have to adopt the budget. I've lived here over 65 years. My family's Lewis Gary, or was. I love my community. I'd like to make a comment, and I can't speak to the whole United States, but the Uniform Traffic Code sets speed limits in the state of Delaware unless otherwise specified, and Chief, check me if I'm wrong, but in town it's 25 miles an hour. Just about every place in the state of Delaware, unless it's otherwise posted, it's 25 miles an hour. If somebody wants to do it differently, they can. I welcome Chris's comments from last meeting. And I think there's a couple terms, variable message board. The city's bought a few boards. You also have, he has some portable boards, wagons that have that display the speed. The new technology, they also have signboards that they can put up messages that were very useful to the Public Works Department. We need more of them. And the chief and the administrations have utilized funds, available grants to buy some of these things. But people shouldn't be bitching and raising hell. They need to buy the better ones that have the television cameras in them and the computers, because the 10,000 cars or whatever it was that you heard a figure on came about from the speed trailer, did it not, Chief? Is that where that came from, or was it
Not
from
it.
hoses?
It was a wireless. It would be like the form of the hoses. It's a newer brand, but it was not the trailer now.
So, and when you take care of Munson Street, I'm familiar with the curve down there. I lived there before Country Club Estates was there. And then you have people on Hickman, and the reason people are coming in that way is because the backup coming into Rehoboth. Whenever you add a traffic light, we have traffic lights at Church Street, and they have crosswalks. Just like the crosswalks in town, the priority goes to the pedestrian. And the light, no matter what the timing for the light is, and the lights on Rehoboth Avenue at 2nd Street and 1st Street actually are interconnected to the highway through the state's control system. But the pedestrian, the reason you're having the backups, and it was discussed a few years ago, even to the point, we'll say across from the post office, the idea was to turn the walk lights on before you gave the green lights to the traffic, so that people would have an opportunity to get off the corner to get across, because otherwise people don't know whether to go or stop. And then there's the people, and in the winter, our police department is very, very liberal. But where you have a traffic light, you're going to have time. I don't mean to diverse to the highway, but the walk lights on the highway, when somebody pushes a button on the highway, 52 seconds, everything stops. No ambulance, no fire truck, nothing can override it. So in town, we're really pretty lucky. We got the crosswalk down by Lingo's, the lights last year, Kevin got them in. The one improvement that should be done for a new crosswalk at Munson Street, I apologize, I do not have, I made 8 copies, but one of the things that the next device should get is when you walk up to the light, because a lot of people, for language purposes or whatever, but they have a pedestal, and it's about high, and when you walk up to it, the motion detector automatically says you can either push the button or it will automatically trip it. We should buy the better version, because the crosswalks on Rehoboth Avenue, in my opinion, are working very, very well. So I asked Kevin on Munson Street, are we going to have the crosswalk there? Are they going to be 4-way, or are they going to be 2-way? Well, we don't, first of all, I don't mean to take this over, and I'm not, but when you have a crosswalk, you have to have a landing, you have to have a place to come from and a place to go. So when you see out on the highway where they don't put a crosswalk, they might not have a sidewalk on the other side. So I have another question that we got a new house out at Lee Street. I don't know, do we have room for a sidewalk to come around the edge of that property? Because the state's going to put sidewalks out there. I don't know whether the Board of Adjustment caught that or not. But when you come in and at Hickman Street and you come over the hill, if you want lights there and people don't see it ahead of time, it happened in Dewey Beach, which I will not explain. But when somebody goes up and hits that button, there's people going to be putting their brakes on, trucks and buses and everybody else. And we've had fights over the past couple of years because people did not want the buses coming in State Road, but we don't want them coming in Rehoboth Avenue. There's just a lot of problems because we have so many, many more people here, and he and his people have to deal with it. So when you come and speak to the commissioners and give your frustrations and go through this, you really get points because you've thought it out and you've identified it. So this year, we're proposing to get in the fall, thankfully, that it doesn't get done in the summer. So at State Road and Munson, we're going to get some semblance of a crosswalk. Now, what's going to happen there is every bus, every truck, everybody coming in, no matter what they're doing, they're going to come in and put on their brakes. And you play the kid playing with the truck, but equally putting on the brakes, and you're going to have more debris on the street and everything else. Pardon? Don't worry about revenue stream. The city could make money other places. But I think the proper terminology where you're getting a lot of your information is a mobile speed radar trailer with a computer, and that's how they roll it around. And you get to them and they move it, and sometimes they plant it in front of a car, it can't be seen. But nonetheless, they do a good job with the people that they have. We have a problem because we have so many people coming in State Road, because when the traffic's backed up out on the highway, when you get emergency vehicles out there and they have what's called preempt, it's an opticom, it doesn't matter. Ambulance, fire, and medics can turn the light screen in the direction that they're going. And when ambulances come up from the south, or Rehoboth ambulances or anybody else, and it trips a light, you sit there. And then you sit there, and if another ambulance or somebody comes up, and they are even on the traffic lights on Rehoboth Avenue, both ways, at First Street and Second Street, and they lock up the intersection also to provide safety. The only thing that overrides them is a pedestrian signal. So you made comment about the 300 block, which I finally figured out was between State Road and Country Club. When you have a stop sign, and they're correct, you have a crosswalk, you got to have a 20-foot space before you can have, with no parking. You can't just throw a crosswalk in any place, you'll lose a parking spot, and we should not worry about that. The safety should be there, but the narrower 300 block would be a good idea. I see no problems, I don't think about it, I don't travel those streets. The double lines for no passing, I think, are a good idea. But we just have so many more things going on. I'm going to stop. But
Walter,
the point being is it's a problem, it's identified, and then you have to educate the commissioners that are not here to have heard anything that you said.
All right, thank you, Walter.
Thank you for the time.
So I think what I'd like to do, is there any other members of the public? Okay, thank you. I think I would like to just outline where I think we're at and where we've have consensus so that we can solidify some of this stuff. I think we're all in favor of posting the speed limit signs, 2 of them, one at the beginning of the 300 block of Munson going in either direction. I believe that everyone is in favor of putting the yellow squares in front of the driveways to help calm traffic. And I believe everyone was in favor of putting in the speed readers as well. I think everyone was in favor of the double yellow line, maybe not everyone, but a majority. So that's the only questionable. All of the long-term recommendations, I think we've all agreed that we'll table them until we see how these short-term things work out.
I just have one more question for Chris about those recommendations.
Yeah, sure.
Are you confident that the neighborhood isn't going to be upset about putting the flashing?
Well, I haven't spoken to every single one of the neighbors, but I've spoken to a majority of them, and I think everyone is in favor, as evidenced by the fact that Ed, I had his email's probably popping. I think he's gotten 7 or 8 emails from people who weren't here, who wanted to express their opinion, and then, of course, the turnout here. I haven't heard from anybody who said that they were against them.
Sir, if you want to weigh in, I know you represent the traffic committee for the homeowners association.
And I think that we've had some people volunteer to have it in the front of their house. I don't know if it's the best location, but we have had numerous people
So
volunteer. So I
it-
don't think you're gonna have a lot of people objecting, at least from people that live there during the summer, most of the summer. I don't know, and I don't think the renters will care.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Of Kevin, would it be a double line or would it be a single line? What is the appropriate? Because we've talked about both.
Yeah, and I'm not sure.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we could put
So we have to
one
look into
down, we
that.
could put two down, I mean,
Given the width of the street, a double would be appropriate just as part of the calming to solve the calming.
I think it,
You got plenty of room there. If it's 1 foot wide for a double,
Typically, a double yellow line means no passing on either side.
Right.
When you have a single line, usually it's followed up with the dashes, so one side could pass while the other. So
Right.
if you're looking for both ways, should be a double yellow.
there, it sounds like we should have a double.
I think it would look a little junky, guys. I think if you had two double-lane yellow lines down your street, I don't think it would look good or appealing. And some of the people spoke out, and the other neighbors weren't entirely supportive of the double lines. It's something that could be added later.
I think we're more concerned about our safety than the visual impact of the lines, and, you know, I think that's the bigger issue here. Can I ask about the timing of when these improvements will be, like, what's the process from here? Like, it sounds like we've got a lot of momentum, it sounds like we've got a lot of support. What happens next, and how quickly can we start to see some of these improvements?
I would say that what I would like to see is us formalize, at least agree on recommendations. We would formalize that into an actual recommendation to the Board of Commissioners that I would like us at our next meeting to vote on. Once we identify, we have a template that we use. So Chris, I may even ask you to help with that. Identify what recommendations we're bringing to the mayor and commissioners. And then we would vote on that the next meeting, send it to them, and it would probably take another month for the mayor and commissioners to talk about it. And if there was a desire to move forward, I think we would probably ask Kevin, what can you do in the short term, and Chief and Kevin, what needs to be budgeted for the next year? I suspect that's how it would go.
So if you're impatient, you're going to have a problem. Patience is the key. Speaking for Sharrows and other things that we've been asking for years, a lot of these processes can take 1 to 2 years to culminate. You'd like to think that in the issue of public safety, it could happen faster. So part of what we have to do is come together as a committee, make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, which Edward will then get to re-present to them your case. And then they have to embrace it. So it takes some time.
2 years seems a little, I mean, that seems really unacceptable to me, frankly, as a resident, homeowner, taxpayer. I'm sure, all of my friends here would commiserate with that. 2 years just seems unacceptable.
Well, staffing-wise, there are issues with budgeting, there are issues with staffing. So I'm familiar with working with Kevin and lobbying for things and slowing down and staying patient, and then eventually all good things come to pass.
then he starts
But
hollering
he
and
was
screaming.
8 people short on his staff a year ago. So there was nobody to do the work. So thankfully with the Sharrows, it went to an outside contractor, and it happened quickly once the decision was made. But that's been going on for 3 years.
Well, but let's,
So in this case, I don't know that we need to wait another meeting. If we could have a motion to send these upstream, it seems like there's 4 facets we could probably all agree on.
Or
And I'm fine with that. The mayor is very specific about the structure in which recommendations go before us and the rationale and how it's how we measure success, et cetera. So because that is, I would like you guys to take a look at that before I submit it with my name on it. But if you guys, with working with Chris and someone else, just allow me to take what we approve and recommend and make that template work, I'm happy to do it. And one thing I will say, 2 years is unacceptable for something like this. And I think the difference in some of the challenges that this committee may have had moving things forward in the past is, one, you've got a bunch of residents that are here speaking and emailing. And yes, we've gotten 10 emails, the mayor and commissioners and I. And I'm committed to moving this forward as fast as I can. So I think something could happen in the late fall. Again, things have taken longer in the past, and it may, but it's certainly not what my expectation would be.
Yeah, I can concur with that. I think what you're bringing up here, so far, you're on a very good pace, okay? I'm optimistic for you. I doubt it'll be, or some things can start falling in place.
And you know, Chris is, I mean, this is his profession, and he's got subject matter expertise, and he's made this a little bit easier for us in the way you've provided the recommendations and you've outlined, articulated the concerns and on that street.
Well, Ed, could we, if we want to proceed, if you wanted to take a vote today, I think if we voted on each of the 4 separate issues, one at a time, so that you know where the committee stands. And if you're not comfortable with that, you want to delay it till next month.
Can I just say one thing about the double yellow lines? Because I think that's the only one that appears to have a little controversy. For any of you who know where the mayor lives, there's a double yellow line on his street. So just put that out there. Okay.
And that's a very narrow street.
And there's a lot of curves there.
With a big curve that naturally slows traffic down.
Yeah. You're only supposed to put 2 double lines where you can't safely pass. I'm afraid it's a little too straight there for you guys, for that block to qualify for that. That's why I'm afraid it's not consistent, but.
So the path of least resistance to me would be the 25-mile-per-hour stop signs. 25-mile-per-hour speed limit signs should be quick and easy.
I would
No
agree.
problem.
Well, sign guy doesn't work for me, so I'd say yes, but I don't control his time and effort. So I would just
And
say-
then the driveway boxes, and then the double yellow line, and then the speed readers.
I would just offer.
I'll allow you to come up if you wouldn't mind.
Sorry. So that's what I was confused about. The double yellow lines would include the boxes? So how much does that narrow one side of the street?
It depends upon how far you would extend the box out into the pavement.
Well, what's standard?
Well, it sounds like there is no standard here because some streets have them and some streets don't.
But the
So,
boxes
like,
that are painted, I think, are a standard. The standard parking space width, because that's supposedly a parking space for that driveway.
So there's a number that.
So it's
that
9
Kevin
feet,
will
I
have.
think. Somebody might know better than I.
The
Yeah.
typical width of a car?
It's typically 9 feet deep, and then it's, I think, 2 or 3 feet on each edge of the driveway.
Yeah,
So it's, some fit a car, some don't fit a car.
right. So that would be narrowing the street 9 feet plus 2 feet, correct?
Well, is
Because the
it
double
9
li-
feet long or 9 feet wide?
Wide,
Wide, it's either 8 or 9, yeah.
wide. So you're going 9 feet out plus 2 feet for the double line, is that correct?
I think each line is 4 inches. You probably have 4 inches in between, so it might be a total of a foot, maybe 14 inches.
Okay. And what's a standard single lane width?
Anywhere between 10 and 12 feet.
So we got plenty of room.
You have a wide street.
It would have, I think it would have a very positive effect. And the double yellow line is probably the second choice I would have in terms of being easy to put in play.
Yeah.
The driveway boxes are a lot more work.
Oh, because they have to go out and paint each of
The
them.
highway striper comes down that street and it's done in 30 minutes.
Yeah, I see. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
I would just offer that for the painting piece of it, again, the painter doesn't work for me, but we were very successful this year in bringing in Straight Line, the contractor to come in, did all the sharrows, updated any crosswalks that we needed. So, and it relatively inexpensive, but it would be something we'd put in the budget and then we would do between April 1st and the season. So that would be the target for any striping, whether it's the box out or the center line striping to get done on that block. We would look to have it in place between start of the budget year, April 1st, and then the season, so 1st of May, in that ballpark, when we would bring them in to do whatever other crosswalk touch-up work we're going to do, have them come in and do it all at one time. That would be my recommendation on the striping, the painting piece of it all.
Yeah, and I would just add, because Kevin, the city doesn't own a striping machine. You'd have to contract with
We have a
somebody.
small push, walk behind,
Yeah,
right?
but
We don't have the
not
big.
to do the whole street.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Okay.
Walter, under a minute.
Walter Burningham, 123 Hamilton Avenue. First of all, there was a comment made about Columbia Avenue being so narrow. Columbia Avenue itself is not that narrow. It is a standard street. It's actually thick, 16 inches thick. But you don't see the shoulders. And beyond the shoulders, the property lines are significantly back. It's just, and there has been discussion in the past 10 years about putting curbs and sidewalks on it, and that kind of went away. But our biggest problem of recent, and you'd have to live on that side of town and see the bicycles and everything go up and down the street, you fall off because the dirt at the edge of the street is not there, and Public Works does not backfill the street to make it safe, and every once in a while, people on bicycles fall off and get hurt. I used to be a commissioner years ago, don't put anything to that, but I made a motion and it got passed, and our city manager has got permission to make any minor traffic changes, et cetera, that they deem necessary, as long as they bring it back to the next regular meeting. You could have, if you persuaded them, they could outside contract, or they could paint the center lines, which I think is a good idea for no passing. Let's call it Munson Street, from State Road all the way up to Country Club on the other end. And she doesn't need any authorization to do it. She's already got it. And there's enough money in there with all the money we get from parking meters to pay for it.
Thank you, Walter. So I'm going to take each one of these short-term recommendations and see if we can just vote on them. Recommendation number 1 is posting 2 miles per hour signs, one on the eastbound and one for westbound traffic on the 300 block of Munson. Any discussion? And I'm going to do a group vote.
Ready to vote?
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, recommendation number 1 passes for our recommendation. Number 2 is that the city should paint a double yellow line down the middle of the block, the 300 block of Munson. Double yellow line from State Road to Country Club Road on Munson. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Clarification, State Road to Scarborough. Right, because it goes State Road, right? If you're on Munson, it goes State to Country Club, Country Club to Country Club, Country Club to Scarborough. I'm okay with it just being between Country Club and Country Club because that's where I live. That's where I'm most concerned. But, I mean, if you're going to do the whole block, it is,
There is a stop sign there is.
Yeah.
there's
The
stop signs
short
at-
block between Country Club number 2 and State Road is not a problem.
you're right, that's not a problem. You're right, I take that back, actually. Between Country Club and Country Club, which was originally how I wrote it. I'm sorry, I just rethought that. Fine.
Yeah, that might have been my goof. We were sort of talking about country club to country club, and then
There's not a passing
yeah,
issue on those two short blocks.
Yep.
It's the long block.
So let me say that again. We would recommend painting a double yellow line on the 300 block of Munson from country club to country club. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
I'm going to do a individual vote on this. Elise Moore,
Aye. Yes.
David Diefendorfer,
Aye.
Donna Moore, I'm sorry, Donna Mabry.
I'm really ambivalent on this. I'll vote in favor, yes, aye.
That's an
Aye.
aye? Okay.
I don't know if it'll work. I don't know if it'll slow things down, guys.
David Mann?
Aye.
And the vote chair, the vote votes aye. I'm sorry, the chair votes aye, and that recommendation will move on. Recommendation number 3 is on the 300 block of Munson to paint the square boxes in front of driveways. Can I have a motion?
How about if we make that for all the, let's do that along all of Munson, from State to Scarborough. The whole way, the whole street, there. Scarborough to State.
There's not a lot of driveways in those short blocks.
Well,
There's really not, actually.
I don't
if
know
you
that
think
there's
about
any.
it. I don't think there are none between State and Country Club. There's none. They're
Right.
either
Okay.
on State or they're on Country Club. And then between Country Club and Scarborough, is there one?
Like-
Okay.
Let's just carry it out. I'm just saying, if there are driveways, let's just carry it out for that area, while you're at it.
I'm inclined to keep things consistent, and we're
Country
just
club to
dealing
country
with
club
country
is
club to
consistent.
country club. Thoughts? Okay, well, I'm going to entertain a motion. I'll let you guys phrase it however you want.
To paint driveway boxes on the 300 block of Munson Street between Country Club and Country Club.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oh.
That's the way it works. Walter Burningham, 123 on Lopez. When you do this, you're going to have the potential for everybody else, Country Club Estates is its own kind of thing, that are going to want the boxes. I don't see anything wrong with it. The straight lines, the no passing line is one thing, but the boxes become complicated. It takes a little bit more time to do it, and it's not the person with the machine that drives down the street with the truck and puts 2 straight lines.
All right, thank you, Walter. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to paint the driveway boxes on the 300 block of Munson, be from Country Club to Country Club. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And that recommendation carries. Lastly is to recommend that the city install permanent speed readers on the 300 block of Munson in between Country Club and Country Club. We didn't really specify if there would be one on each direction or just one on the block going in either. So we didn't really discuss that.
I
but-
think we did. I think we said that it would typically it'd have to be on both sides.
Both sides. I'm
Yeah.
fine.
I
Do we
would
want to
recommend,
make,
I would recommend both sides.
Yeah.
do you want to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to install the speed reader signs, 2 of them, one westbound, one eastbound, from Country Club to Country Club.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. I'll do a group vote on this one. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. The recommendation carries. Okay, so we've got 4 recommendations that we're going to make to the mayor and commissioners. I will draft that document, and unless, I will send it to you all, but unless there's an objection here now, I am taking that document and sending it right to the mayor and commissioners without it coming back before this body and the public. Everyone fine with that?
Yes.
Okay.
The only thing I didn't get any of the letters or this communication. I didn't receive that. I didn't see it attached to the agenda. It would be helpful to have that. Pardon? I have not received that. Even the letters? No communication? Oh, okay.
So
Well, just when that comes in, it would be good to please pass it around,
Yeah.
especially if this topic comes up again.
That's probably my fault in not realizing that it didn't go to the city secretary. So, Ann, if I compile all of those and send them to you, can we embed it in the agenda? I think what was sent went just to the mayor and commissioners. So we'll get that embedded in the agenda as backup.
Well,
And with that, I'm going to ask if there's any final comments from the public. I first want to thank all of you for being here. Please come to more city meetings. Aren't they so much fun? I especially want to thank Chris for everything you've done in gathering this information, bringing it before us, and making this a much easier process on us than it otherwise would be on other issues. But I would encourage all of you to, when we get this put on an agenda for the mayor and commissioners, I would encourage you all to stay involved in the process and speak up.
Let us know when that is and we will show up.
Thank you.
Did you all understand what Ed was talking about with Ann and the pathway with your letters? The city secretary loves to get your emails.
And
So anytime an email goes to the mayor commissioners, it's important that the city secretary is copied on it so it gets embedded into the record. A lot of times, one of us will usually realize she's not and forward it, but in this instance, it didn't happen. So, but
And Ed, can I say one thing to the public? While they're here, like one thing we didn't talk about, and your concerns about how dangerous Munson and State Street intersection is. If you look what happened at the Hickman State Street intersection, they put those silent policemen, those signs on, and that slows down the traffic, and we feel those have been effective. So those are other things to consider for the issues you're thinking of. I think those silent policemen might be good on State Street by Munson. Oh, those are those things that are embedded in the street that say slow down. They're just the white signs.
It says state law, stop for pedestrians in the crosswalk. They're vertical
Yeah,
and right on the double yellow line.
and they're right there at Hickman. Check it out at Hickman and State Street. That helps a lot. I think that's also something else that could be put on Munson to slow people down. You might like that better than a double yellow line, but but just to know that's another option to slow things down.
Thank you. I'm glad that we've got a path forward on this. And again, thank you all of you for participating. With that, I'm going to go to the next agenda item. And Donna,
We're way over.
we're
Ed.
way over. So if
Yeah.
you could just do a preface, a little few-minute opening, so we can digest what you have to say.
Well,
And it'll be first on the agenda for the next meeting.
Excellent, that's what I was going to ask for. Well, as far as the issue about delivery trucks parking in the travel lanes on Rehoboth Avenue, I have looked at the regulations in Lewis and Bethany to compare. I looked at the regulations and codes that are on the book for Rehoboth, and I want to share that so you know where things stand. Also, I've had a meeting with Chief Banks to talk about this issue. And so I just want to share that information with you so you're aware of what's currently on the books regarding that, and to lay out a process that we would have to proceed from. And I don't want to rush it, but be able to talk more the next time about a process and what steps we might take and whether or not we do it.
Okay.
And whether we proceed.
Okay, thank you for that. And we are, I'm sorry, for the members of the public, I'm glad you're here and you're welcome to stay, but do not feel obligated to stay. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. Donna, thank you for that brief overview. That'll be first on the agenda for the next meeting. The other thing that I put on new business that we'll talk about at the next time is a lot of if the public, if you could just wait to speak until you get outside, please. Thank you. In the discussion with the few recommendations that this committee put forward to the mayor and commissioners, the topic about an overall comprehensive traffic plan kept coming up. As the city wanting that comprehensive plan instead of piecemealing or, putting Band-Aids on each specific problem. I don't know how we do that without us recommending to the mayor and commissioners that we budget for a traffic study next year. And maybe it is as simple as that, is that we talk about the need for it, or if there is a need for a traffic study, so we do have a comprehensive plan. But I don't know what we can do as committee members to come up with a comprehensive plan without having the expertise required.
So is this like revising Rehoboth Avenue as it was constructed during streetscape and correcting some of the flaws, or, because there's a lot involved here. We've discussed one-way streets here years ago for a while, and then the pushback was so strong we never took it any further. We had a whole little loop plan for downtown to improve traffic flow, and that got blasted away by all the business owners because they were afraid they'd go out of business. Like nobody would come here anymore if there were one-way streets. So there are a lot of components to this.
And I'll say this stemmed from us recommending no left turns year-round. Is why are you just recommending that without looking at the big picture on traffic? And that's where this stems from. And I'm ignorant to what was done in the past and what recommendations were done in the past and what studies may or not have been done in the past. That was before my time.
We never really got to studies. We got to recommendations that then were shot down and never went anywhere.
Yeah, I think this is a big project. I don't see what all the issues are. I think here, changing that left-hand turn, that's not a big deal, really, in my opinion. I think if we would address the delivery truck parking, that would go a long way to addressing issues, and that's maybe more doable than we think.
This could be a non-action for us. I wanted to do a little overview and give the committee feedback on what was given from the mayor and commissioners. So just digest it, think about it. I'll have it on the agenda for the next meeting.
At the Wilmington-Baltimore Streetscape Committee meetings, a traffic study was brought up several times. And the idea being we would go ahead with the streetscape before a traffic study. I'm just that was what the mayor had decided. Just putting that out there.
So I'll put that on the agenda so we can talk a little bit more at the next meeting. Just want to give a brief overview. With that, I'm just gonna skip over to discuss items for future agendas. I heard today more concerns about traffic and safety on State Road. So I don't know if is there a desire that we look at that in more detail?
We've learned over the years that people are very poor judges of vehicle speed, and that people think vehicles are going a lot faster than they really are. I hardly ever drive in the city. I spend a lot of time walking and cycling, and my pathway to life down here is State Road, and I really don't see cars going that fast. To me, that's a known, you better drive slowly area. And I also have noticed that the police vehicles are parked in such a way that they're really not visible unless you're looking for them. Like Bonnie and I go and we wave through the window and say hi, but unless you're looking for them, you don't even know they're there. They blend right in, which is great. So that pathway could be used more, but we're suffering from what every urban area in the United States is suffering from is these things and Google Maps and Waze sending people all over the place, where before these existed, Munson Street was a nice, quiet street. And now it's a way to escape. So what I've seen happening in urban areas is all of a sudden these pathways are getting overwhelmed. Residential areas are revolting, as we experience today. And now delineators are going in to block pathways and force people to take the major streets. You can't, if you came down Munson, down that nice hill, which I like on my bicycle, and then try to cross State Road, oh, sorry, you can't do that. You can turn right and go to Rehoboth Avenue, but you can't go straight across. That pathway is now blocked. That's an example. I'm not saying that that's appropriate here, but one-way streets are more prevalent. Blocking pathways in and out of residential areas have become more prevalent to reduce what these people have had to suffer through. Cars passing on, that's crazy.
I'm sorry,
No,
I'm with
just-
future
so-
agenda items.
Yeah, so what it always leads me back to is I'm an enthusiastic amateur. I defer to chief banks and professionals. And to me, this is a perfect case of saying, hey, we got to find somebody that does this for a living 5 days a week and interview them and then hire the right person to tell us what's the right thing to do.
Well, I use that area a lot too. I think State Road 1B is the forgotten highway. I'm surprised more people don't use it to avoid Rehoboth Avenue. Okay. And I use it a lot, and it's not used that much. There's not that much traffic on State Road, and I think we can do some things to calm it down, like another silent policeman. I think we can do more things there on Munson to calm things down, these things we're doing, which hopefully will address many of their issues. I think it's true, the main thing is being able to cross State Road from Munson or Hickman because the view, you have to because of the parked cars, and you have to pull so far out in order to see the traffic. Now, I think the silent policemen help with that you know that's going to slow the State Street traffic down, but
I think sightlines can be easily improved. That's
good.
not
That would be the biggest thing. I don't think it's too much traffic. I think State Road should be used more to take the.
Okay, well, we will, I'll put that on so we can talk more about it at a later date. With that, the next meeting is scheduled for August 18th at 2 p.m. Is there any additional comment from the committee? Walter, can you make it very, very, very brief?
Burningham 120. 23 on Open Avenue. The comment on State Road about the bush. Munson Street, that would be the northeast corner, there's a red house there. There are triangular things on the corners, somewhat triangular, and they have markers on the back of them that says RB 39, Survey of Rehoboth Beach 39. That's the property line. At that particular property, there is a bush, bushes. They're out on the city, and the city doesn't take them out. We have to go through the Queen Elizabeth to determine that it's impinging sight, line of sight, chief, is that what it's called?
Yes. Yes, sir.
And the bush ought to be gone. So when there's a problem, you need to be notified. My last comment is very simple. A long time ago, I was sitting up there, so to speak, and I said, what about the letter from such and such? That's what I was telling the lady. When somebody wants to send something to the city, but if they send it to the newspaper, unless they send it to the city, Ann doesn't have to send it to anybody. If you want to raise it to the Cape Gazette, send it to the Cape Gazette. You also need to copy, tell your people, copy the mayor and the commissioners and city managers so the city gets notified. Is that close, Ann?
Thank you, Walter. With that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 3:47 PM. Thank you.
Chief, you got 1 second?